Hello and welcome to this Pygame tutorial. Today we are going to be going a little bit more in depth into animation, and we're going to work with a little bit of tile map drawing just to help you understand it a little bit better. So let's get started. Let's do a new project and let's just call it animation. Okay, now then let's just clear out all this stuff. By the way, if you're wondering, I use PyCharm, just a little bit easier and user-friendly to me. I'm going to go ahead and import Pygame and move the cursor over it and hit install packages or install package. We'll let it install. And once the error clears, we'll go ahead and start with when width and when height. We're just going to do 800 for the width and 600 for the height. Now we're going to create a constant FPS for frames per second, and let's just do 60 for now. Now we're going to create a tile size variable. We're going to set it to 32. We'll use this for the length and the width, so it'll create a square tile. And then we're going to create a speed variable, and we're going to leave this at 32. I'll explain this a little bit later. Okay, so first thing we want to do is I want to create a function called getSprite, and we're going to use this to pull separate images from one image. So we'll do def get underscore sprite, and we're going to actually pull things through this function. So we're going to do sheet x, y, w, and h. So this is going to be the sheet we're using, the x coordinate, the y coordinate, the width, and the height. We'll do sprite equals pygame.Surface. We'll open parentheses, open brackets, then we'll do width and height. Then we'll do sprite.blit sheet of 0, 0, and x, y, width, height. Then we'll do sprite set color key, and we'll set this to white. What this does is this will make it transparent only on the white areas of the image we're going to be using. And then we want it to return sprite. So now what we want to do is we want to create this animation. So I'm actually going to show you an easy way to do it with Windows. We can actually open up Paint, and with Paint we can actually zoom in. You can either hit Control and scroll up, or you can use the view zoom in, but this will get us close enough where we can count the pixels. And this is how I do animations. Now we're going to start off with just some numbers. That way we can kind of see it step through each animation. So we'll click back on the Home tab, and let's create a square. I'm going to zoom in a little closer. I'm going to shrink this. We don't really need that much room. And then we're going to create a square. So if we start at the very top left pixel and start to drag out, if you'll notice it's very thick. So we can actually click on size and click on the thinnest one. And then let's delete that out. Let's start it again. Now you'll notice down here in the bottom left, it will actually show you which pixel you're on. So let's start at 0, 0, and let's go 32 wide and 32 down. Now you'll notice one says 31, 31. That's because it starts at 0, but you'll notice over there to the right, it actually shows you the exact size. So once we do this, let's create 10 of these boxes so that we have one for each number. So you can do that by clicking back off of this, click select, And then we'll select this whole box. Control C on Windows will copy it. And then Control V for paste. We'll line it back up. We'll create a second box, third box, a fourth box. Now then let's click off of it. Let's go ahead and make this a little wider because we're going to create 10, one for each number. So let's select. And then we're going to select all of this. Copy, paste, drag it all down. So now we've got a square for each number. Go ahead and shrink this down. And then what we're going to do is we are going to punch in the numbers. That way we don't have to draw the numbers. So let's just click the text button up here. And then let's just click in the middle of the square. Let's do 0. And 16 works pretty good on this. And then we can grab the square and drag it about in the middle. Then let's click in the middle of the next one. Let's do 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. Now, if you have a problem with it not being centered and you need to move it, you can use the select, create a square over it, and then just drag it over a little bit. Okay, now that we've got all our numbers, let's go ahead and save as. We'll put this in our animation project, and let's just call it numbers.png. Now, if it's already going to do the save as type, you don't have to worry about it, but we want to make sure that it is a PNG file. Now, if we go back in our project, we'll see it. Looks like it's pulling in good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create an animation list. So the way this is going to work is we're going to actually pull the coordinates from this. So if you put your cursor in the top left of the screen, it'll show you in the bottom left of the screen, right down here, what coordinate you're at. So you'll see 0, 0 up here at the top left. That's where we want to start drawing this. And then the next one will be at 32, 0, 64, 0, 96, 0, 128, 0. Then we come down here, and this will be the same as the top, except for the y coordinates will be 32. So let's go back into our project, and we will do the animation list and put the coordinates in. So what I do is I put a list inside of a list, such as animation underscore list, open bracket. I will open up another set of brackets in here, and we'll do the first one, 0, 0 coordinates, comma, open brackets, 32, 0, brackets, 64, 0, 96, 0, and 128, 0. And that will get our first row. Yes, see, that's the last one, so that's good. So now, let's go ahead and copy this, Control C, and paste it. If it does the indentation, just go ahead and tab it one over. Indentation is very important in Python. And then let's just change these all to 32 on the y coordinates. And when we actually start running through our sprite sheet, this should pull those coordinates out. So now let's go ahead and start making our main function. So define main, then we will initialize pygame init, then we will create screen equals pygame dot display dot set mode, and we will use the win width and win height, pygame.SCALED. And we will do pygame.display.caption.set caption, and we will call this animation. What this does is this just changes the name of the window when it opens up. Now we will create our background, like pygame.Surface screen.getSize. We will do background equals background.convert. Then we'll do background.fill. Let's just make this a kind of gray color. You can either type this in by RGB colors, or you can type in a specific color to use. I like to use like a grayish color that's not on the color set because we're going to do an exercise where we might use some of those colors. So let's just set a gray color. So 100 by 100 and 100. And this will kind of create a grayish color with RGB, so that'd be red, green, and blue. Okay, screen.blit, and we'll put in our background, and then we will put in the location where it will start drawing. So 0, 0. And this will just draw our background onto our window. So now we want to do clock equals pygame dot time dot clock. What this will do is this will call in the clock so that we can set our frames per second. Okay, now we will create a sprite sheet. So let's do sprite sheet equals pygame.image.load, and then we are going to pull in our numbers.png here. So in PyCharm, when you hit in, it should automatically pull it up. So you can click on it, and then we want to convert it. Now we are going to create the animation loop, and we want it to start at 0, because lists, they don't start at 1, 2, 3. They start at 0, 1, 2, 3. So let's do animation loop equals 0, running equals true. And now we're going to create a while loop to keep the game going. So while running, then we're going to create our frames per second so that this while loop isn't going as fast as your computer will go. Instead, it'll just go 60 times per second. So clock.tick FPS. FPS is the variable or the global that we created earlier. So this just will punch in 60. Now we will do for event and pygame.event.get. Then if event.type double equals pygame.quit, then we will shut down the running loop. So running will equal false. Now what we are going to do is we are going to mess with the animation loop. We're going to actually create the animation. And the way we are going to do this is we're going to tell it that, hey, you're going to run through this list, and once the list ends, you're going to start back over. and just rotate through this list. So let's do if animation loop, which is what we created right here, is less than 9, which is 9's the last one. There's 10 here, but we start at 0. So 9. So as long as it's less than 9, we're going to punch in for this variable, pick get underscore sprite, which is the function we created earlier. And we have to plug in the sprite sheet. So we'll do sprite sheet, comma, animation list, open bracket, math, floor, animation loop, and then a bracket of 0, comma, animation list, math, floor, animation loop, open bracket 1, and then tile size. Okay, so I know this looks very complicated, but what this is this is going to punch this information into our getSprite method that we created earlier. So it's going to take sprite sheet, which is that image that we created earlier. It's going to take the animation list, math.floor, which means the bottom of anything, so that if we're adding like 0.1 or if there's a float in there, it will put it at 9 instead of returning a float. It will actually return an integer, so to give us a real number to plug into our list. So math.floor will round down, then it'll find the number in our animation loop. So right now it's 0, and then it will do the 0, which is the first thing inside of the list inside of the list. So what it does is what we'll do 0, 0. So it'll come into the list and it'll do the 0 position, which is right here. And then it'll open this list inside of this list and do the 0 position here. So it'll pull this coordinate. Now that on the next one, you'll notice it's the same thing, except there's a 1 there. So it'll pull the y coordinate. So x coordinate, y coordinate out of the list inside of the list. And then it'll create it at the size of tile size, left to right, and tile size top to bottom, using our variable we created earlier. So this will actually punch in that original spot, but we don't want it to only put in that specific part of the picture every time. We want it to actually walk through every piece. So what we are going to do is we will do animation loop plus equals 1, so that every time it runs through this, which will be 60 times per second, it's going to add 1 to this. And what this will do is this will punch in to the animation loop part here. So it will actually walk through, as long as it's less than 9, it will walk through every piece. But what happens when it gets to the end? We need it to go back to 0, so it'll start over. So we will do else. So what we want it to do is, if it doesn't exist inside of this, we still want it to do this. So we'll copy and paste it. I'm going to go ahead and leave that over here just so it looks just like the top one. And then we want to set animation loop to 0. I'll send it back to the beginning of our list and walk it back through. And then if it's outside of that, it'll send it back to the first one. So now then that we've got all of that, now we need to actually draw it onto the screen. So let's do screen.blit background 0, 0. Basically the same thing we did earlier. And what this will do is this will create a background every time we draw this. I'll explain it a little bit more later. So do screen.blit, and now we're going to draw this picture from this coordinate on top of the background. So we'll do pick, and then we are going to pull it from pick X and pick Y. Now you'll notice the errors that come up right away, which means we have not created this yet. Even though we're going to change it as we go, we're going to actually want it to start off at 0, 0. So let's go ahead and just punch it in under here. So let's do pick underscore X equals 0, and then pick underscore Y equals 0. That clears out our errors. And for now, we will leave them like that. So now let's go ahead and come down here and do if double underscore name double underscore equals main. Then we will run main. And this should enable the game to start so we can test it out. So let's start it, and we have a black screen. So the reason why we have a black screen is we actually need to update this every time. And Pygame has an internal method that works for this. It's called pygame.flip. So let's do pygame.display.flip, and that should actually enable it to refresh. So now you'll notice that our numbers are just going through super fast. You can't even tell what they are. Let's pull it in the middle so that we can see it a little bit better. In order to do that, we can actually change this. Pick X and pick Y. Let's set it in the middle of the screen. So let's do win width divided by 2, which will take the entire width of the screen and divide it by 2 to put it about in the middle. And we'll do win height divided by 2. So that should put it in the middle for us. Now we can see it, and you see it's super fast. Maybe we want to see the animation actually walk through. So let's change our FPS, frames per second, down to 1. It does it like 1 every second. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now once it hit 9, it started back over, so our animation seems to be working great. So now let's work with moving it around. Let's create in our events. Let's make it where our keys will move the character around, even though it's just numbers, but for now we'll just make it where our keys do this. So under the Pygame if quit, we're going to go ahead and do if event.type equals Pygame.key down, which will mean if the button's pushed down, then we will check and see which key is pushed. So if event.key equals pygame.k underscore up, then we will take our pick Y minus equals speed. So what this should do, our coordinates, they start at the top left inside of Pygame. So what we want to do is we want to minus, not screen, speed. So if it's in the middle, we want to minus equal the speed, which would be 32. That's what we set it at. So what it should do is it should move it up exactly 1 square, like the size of itself, up 1 when we do that. So let's give it a try. So now when we push up, it moved it up. It waits until it goes to the frame rate, so it will move. So let's go ahead and speed this up since we understand how the animation is working. Let's go ahead and go up to 10 for now. And now then, let's go ahead and create the rest of our keys so we can move it left, right, up, down. So elif event.key Now be careful when you do this. See how I accidentally put in key down? You want it to be k underscore down. And then elif event.key pygame k underscore right. So now then with this, we want to do pick underscore y plus equals speed, so that it'll go down instead of up. It'll add to that instead of subtract. And then of course we want to do pig x on the left or right. So on left, we're going to be subtracting, so we'll do minus equals speed. And then right, which will be pig x plus equals speed. So now let's test it. And it moves around as expected. But what if we want it to leave the number as we go across the board? So the way we can do that is we can get it to stop drawing the background. So for now, we are going to comment out the background down here so that it doesn't continuously update. So we can actually hit Control / and comment it out. That way we can come back and use it later. Now then we can hit. See, it'll leave it on the screen. This helps out a lot if you're creating like a map to understand how this works. That way you know if you want to like go through and like create like layers all the way across the screen and then do it over again at a certain point, or you can update all of them. But for now, that'll work. Now let's say that you want to create it where it just runs through the entire size of the screen and then starts back over. So basically, if we want to do that, we can create max X and a max Y according to our screen size. So let's do that. Let's do max for X equals width divided by tile size, and max underscore Y equals min height divided by tile size. And with this, then we can actually make it run through by doing just simple if-then statements. So if pick Y is less than height, then if pick is less than width, then pick X plus equals speed. Else pick Y plus equals speed, but instead we will reset the pick X to 0. And then else pick X equals 0 and pick Y equals 0. And what this will do is this will run through as the animation goes, and as long as this is smaller than the height, it will continue, but as soon as it's bigger, it should start over by this else, by going back to the 0, 0 coordinates. And then it'll do the same thing with X, except for we just have to change the X back. So let's give that a try. See the way it's doing? So let's go ahead and speed that up. Let's go ahead and change our frames per second back up to 60. And let's run it again. And it should start overriding itself. Now the reason why it's looking a little off down here is because we didn't start it exactly in the middle, like squared up with everything else. So as soon as it ended, it started over perfectly squared with the corner. So we can do that by closing this out. And let's do the starting point. Let's just put this back to 0. This should make this look a little bit better. Now, of course, if you want this to clear out every time, you can uncomment out the background blitting, which will allow it to just show you where it's at. But I hope this helps you understand how screen mapping works and how animations work. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments below. And I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that I can continue to make these tutorials. Thanks.